Welcome to Who Is My Neighbour, coming to you from Ugumbe, country of the Komomeri people of the Gold Coast, Australia. I'm your host, Tim Buxton, and on this podcast, I have the incredible privilege of interviewing refugee waymakers who are truly world changers in their communities. You'll discover their hopes and dreams, along with the many challenges they have and continue to overcome on their journey to belong. Who Is My Neighbour is brought to you by You Belong, the social impact organisation leading the way in empowering waymakers to thrive and belong. Simply head on over to youbelong.org.au to learn more and find out how you too can get involved. But for now, here's our guest for this episode of Who Is My Neighbour. Well, welcome to Who Is My Neighbour. Today I have Blaise Itabelo. I hope I pronounced your surname well. On the podcast today, so good to have you. Just realised that you are literally up the road in Logan. I'm in Gold Coast. There should be no reason why we've got our headsets on. We should be drinking a cup of coffee, having a good chat.
Absolutely.
But welcome to Who Is My Neighbour. So great to have you.
Thank you very much, Tim. And it's good to be here.
Yeah. So today on our podcast, we're going to be chatting about not only a really incredible opportunity that's out there for people to get involved in being welcoming of refugees in their community through your work, but we also get to kind of talk a bit about your personal story and your journey to I guess, being in that role. You are an extremely accomplished individual. You've got postgraduate degrees in international community development and in various not-for-profit work. You're even doing your international studies as a master's. Is that correct? What are you studying in your master's at the minute?
Look, I'm hoping I can get a master's in international aid and development with a little bit of humanitarian assistance in it.
That's phenomenal, and I think from someone with your journey and your experience in life, it's just going to be, I mean, you'd be just such an asset to that community that are out there trying to make a difference in some of the lives of peoples who need it the most.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit about your journey. You grew up, you're from Congo originally, but you grew up in a refugee camp in Tanzania before making your way to Australia. Would you care to just give us a bit of a, summation of your journey and to Australia here? I think it's something that all our listeners would just love to hear.
Yeah, thank you. And you used the correct word today, summation of my journey. Because if I was to share it all, it's actually quite long. And it's because it's a journey that does not only start in one place or ends in one place. It actually comprises of different places and different countries, and to get where I am today. So, just in a nutshell, I was born in Democratic Republic of the Congo, and I was born in a place called South Kivu, and it is a place that all my dreams and everything else, I felt like that is where I will probably live. I never thought of one day sitting where I'm sitting right now. That was never anything that I never thought of, or my father ever thought will ever happen to him or his children or his grandchildren. But unfortunately, the war started in Congo in 1996. And as a result of that, I was young in primary school by that time. I think doing about grade 3. And so we were forced to leave the country. And, we crossed the border to Tanzania. And for the next 16 years, Tanzania was home for me and my parents and my siblings, and I ended up in Australia. And I've been in Australia now since 2011, and I call this place home. And one thing that I proudly say every time is that whatever happens here, we fix it together. This is where I belong, and we fix everything here. I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, to have crossed so many country borders just to find a place where you could plant yourself, to plant for your father, to provide safety and security for his family. What does it what does it mean for you today to be a part of a community that is working and serving those that are walking in your footsteps that you've walked in the past?
Look, I've always described the opportunity of being in this country and doing everything that I do now as a second chance to live. And this is a very deep way of thinking about this, and that is because I grew up in a refugee camp, and it's never life.
Yeah.
You exist, but you don't live. And you exist for 10, 15, 16 years where you have no dreams. Even if you had dreams, there is no way that you will ever achieve your dreams. There is no way that you can ever get anywhere because there are just no bridges. And so being here where I've got an opportunity to contribute, I've got an opportunity to work, I've got an opportunity to help someone else, it's just a second chance to live.
In some weird way, it sounds like a refugee camp. The way you've described it sounds like a prison. Did it feel like that in some ways?
It is 150% a prison. The way, and I'm not sure about other refugee camp, but the refugee camp that I grew up in literally had a fence around it. 60,000 or 80,000 people lived in it by that time. You needed a permit to leave the camp, and you needed to come back at a specific time, and it was well guarded, exactly like a prison. It was literally a prison where you really can't come in without a permit and you can't leave without a permit. And unfortunately, that was the reality for not 1 year, not 2 years, for over 10 years for me.
Wow. So from grade 3, essentially,
I finished my grade 3 in the refugee camp all the way to high school. I got a scholarship while in that refugee camp, a very competitive scholarship, and was one of the few lucky ones where I got this UNHCR scholarship to study in Dar es Salaam, and with conditions that every school holidays we were to go back to the camp. So I still finished my university degree while going back to the camp every now and then because you couldn't stay in the city. You had to go back.
Wow. What was it like for your father? Your father was, and your mother. I mean, what was that like for them? They worked very hard. You share before the podcast, as you kind of shared your story with me earlier, that your father was a principal of a school. He worked very hard. I mean, when you saw how hard your father worked in order to give you guys every opportunity to be, have a better life, to be what you could dream of being, what was that like for you?
I think as you were asking, you were at the beginning of that question, I was actually reminded I probably need to talk to him a little bit more about his experience in raising us in the refugee camp and what it was like for him, because we've never really talked about this part of, their feelings, knowing that now we're losing everything and we have to start from the scratch. I guess they were just strong enough. They were tough enough, and we didn't see the pain in their eyes. I've always feel like I've got a bit of memories and pain and suffering that have actually disappeared in my brain because of somewhat the way they were able to handle the pain and the sufferings they went through in just accepting that now they're nobody, they have nothing, and they have to raise children. And I think for me now, being a father myself, it kind of gives me the strength of knowing that regardless of what I may be going through, I can still make it. And I need to raise children that will also be able to raise other children, regardless of circumstances they're going through. And when it comes to work, I think I got my work ethics through that, and through my parents, knowing that my father's salary was about $10 a month. That was his salary when they get one. It was around $10. But he still woke up every morning and went to that job and worked harder and came back. And even when we didn't have food, at some point they will still make that appearance. And make you believe tomorrow we'll still get food. So you don't feel about how your stomach is feeling right now. You build the hope that, yes, I may be feeling like this, but tomorrow I get something to eat. And so you survive one day.
Wow. I mean, gee, that's a lot of courage. I mean, I couldn't imagine looking into my kids' eyes and knowing that, you know, you've given everything you can to provide for them. And it's still not enough. And yet somehow to front and be like, you know what, we're going to make it. We're going to do this. Eventually you came to Australia though. And I bet as soon as you got in Australia, everything was just easy, right? You came to this country. I say that with a hint of sarcasm. Life doesn't, there's another journey that a refugee has to experience when they come to a place that will actually provide them settlement and provide them, hey, you're going to be able to stay here for long term. I mean, I heard there's the average time a refugee spends in exile, a UNHCR statistic is 17 years. I mean, 17 years wandering, seeking, trying to find a place where you can actually either return home if that's possible. And in your case, we know that the Republic of Congo is not a safe place for people. Even to this day, people are fleeing constantly to neighboring countries. But that journey of flight, then that journey of like displacement, and now this journey of settlement is also another difficult journey. What was it like for you coming to Australia? I mean, many people, I'm assuming, think, oh, yay, they're here. They're just going to have an easy time settling in. It must be just so great for them, and they should be so thankful to be here in Australia. And I'm sure everything's just, they've got everything all ready for them. What was your experience like?
Look, it is a conflicting experience somewhat, and an experience that always comes with mixed feelings. The thought of knowing you're coming to Australia gets you very hyped. You get very excited for a number of reasons. Obviously, I even now, like, I only eat once, twice a day max, because I didn't grow up eating twice or three times, and so I just can't get used to it. I've tried to getting used to eating three times. I just can't work it out. You go like, okay, finally now I am safe. I will never get to worry again that I may be in danger. Someone will kill me because of, whatever that made us flee in the first place. So there's that sense of now there's a little bit of a freedom there. There is safety. There is a little bit of an assurance of your future, because finally you're saying you're going in a developed world. You can be able to achieve all your dreams and all these things you've ever wanted to do for yourself and for your family. But what is very interesting about this place is the reality once you land. And I've shared this with a few people in my networks. For me, I still remember this, about to land at Brisbane Airport, midnight. And I'm looking down the window. I'm seeing cars moving. And I got very excited because I was like, yes, people still awake. It's midnight. And in my mind, I know when people are awake midnight, then this is a place of opportunities. People are coming from work or people are going to work. So I got very excited. And, I landed. And of course, I saw movement within the airport, and I got off the airport and everything. I had all reasons to believe everything was going to be smooth. But I can share with you, and this will surprise you. I lived in the refugee camp all those years. At some point, I felt like death was good for me than living. And I only felt like that once. And almost at the end of my journey in the refugee camp is when now I'm a grown up. I finished my high school. I don't have any other way in life. But for the first time, I actually felt being depressed was when I was in Australia for the first time.
Oh, my.
When I was overwhelmed with everything around me. I was overwhelmed with life. I was overwhelmed with services I needed to navigate. I was disappointed at myself, even for small things such as I came back. I came to Australia knowing that I could speak English. To my surprise, I couldn't speak English in Australia. It's the fact that I did not understand the accent and I couldn't communicate with people as I expected. All of this
Yeah.
overwhelmed me to a certain point. I felt depressed, and not even mentioning things like couldn't get a job.
Wow.
I couldn't connect. I couldn't connect to the locals. I was alone most of the times. Other than the people that I knew from my community, I didn't know anyone else. The only one or two people that I knew, and it was just so overwhelming.
What? How did that make you feel when? I mean, I could only imagine trying to fit into society, trying to make friends, trying to just kind of get on with the rhythm of life of Australia. Every community. I mean, everyone out there probably can relate to moving in their life to a different city, different state, and understands, hey, look, it takes some time to kind of get into a group of friends. But for you, for your family, how did it feel trying to, just on a social level, connect with people?
Look, it's tricky because I grew up in a community that enabled every member of the community to know the other person that lives next door by name and their kids and everything, and it was very common. Coming to Australia, unfortunately, we've got a different culture here. That you don't necessarily have to know your neighbor. You may not even know the person that lives next door to you because that is the culture here. And really, it was very tough for me to really form a social network in this country. And I think most of my friends right now are people that I've worked with. And I think if it wasn't for the work that I was able to secure, the job I do, and going into employment, if I can put it that way, I probably would have had very less friends.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the things too is recognizing that in Australia here we have that culture. We have that culture of a very individualistic culture as opposed to where many refugees and migrants come from, very community-centered cultures, very kind of, like you said, everyone knows their neighbors here in Australia. One of the, why we've called this podcast, Who Is My Neighbour? Because I firmly believe you actually don't have to go very far. I mean, on one side of my house here on the Gold Coast, a very, you could say Caucasian community, really by and large. But on one side, we've got a couple and their family from Macedonia. On the other side, I've got a Samoan and her partner. And it's just incredible. Just either side of me, we have these rich cultures and we benefit from their hospitality and their way of life. But if we, a lot of, again, like you said, a lot of the social interactions may become more around things like work or sports or other community institutions rather than your neighbors or those people that are in close proximity to you. How about the rest of your family? How are they doing? Are they kind of settled in well? Are they?
Look, interestingly enough, when I came to Australia, unfortunately, I came here by myself. So we're a family of 10 children. And out of the 10, I was the only one that made it to Australia by that time. It's a long story, but trust me, I was happy to have made it here by myself. And obviously, the first few years were very tough. Just knowing that I'm in this land, I can eat as much as I want. I can afford a lot of things. And every soft drinks I had reminded me of how much money that was for my family in the refugee camp. And so I really did not settle in this country. I did not feel anything good about the country until when my family had an opportunity to leave, and they were resettled in the US, and their first state was Nevada.
Oh wow!
So you from the refugee camp to
Nevada.
Las Vegas.
Oh my goodness!
And My sisters and some of my siblings who were born in the refugee camp never seen anything else. Were at the shock of their lives being resettled in Las Vegas. So 6 of my siblings now lives in Iowa, Des Moines. They moved from Las Vegas to Des Moines, and I'm here with my older brother, and 2 of my siblings are back in the Congo.
Wow.
That's where they live. So we, unfortunately, as a result of all of these mess with the war and stuff, we all scattered around the world, and probably very hard to all of us ever have a Christmas together.
Oh. That can be the challenge. Everybody has their own journey there, especially when they become adults and the path they take. At the same time, I think you highlighted something very poignant for many refugees that settle here. Some of the can be a great cause for great angst, great anxiety, depression, is that survivor's guilt, right? You've made it to Australia. You've made it to a place of safety, and yet your dear family, your friends, the struggle that they're having, and how much can you do to help them in your situation when you're still struggling to try and make it yourself? I mean, that what is that like, and how would you explain that to your everyday Aussie out there, what it's like to walk in that kind of constant feelings?
It is like a balloon. I think it's a life where you feel like a balloon, where people may see you outside, you are big and you are colorful, but there is air inside you that can just pop out anytime. And, I couldn't sometimes go to a party and have fun with everyone else, because I looked around the room and I saw the drinks on the table, and I knew how much that would support my family. I knew how much that would help my friends. And so you are here physically, but really inside you are somewhere else. You are processing things differently, and the way you look at the world is actually different. I think I appreciate all the experiences I've had, because they've made me look at things differently. I just don't look at something as it is and just take it the way it is. No, I try to put myself into other people's shoes every now and then, and I try to really look at things absolutely differently.
Well, you're doing that now, obviously, in your employment. You've kind of landed, a job that really, uses all of that life and expertise you've in working to help people resettle. Can you explain a little bit about what you're currently doing, and maybe, what that feels like for you right now, and explain, maybe a little bit about this great new program that we've got happening here in Australia that's modeled after what's worked in Canada, the community sponsorship refugees program. I'd love for our audiences now to be kind of introduced to the incredible work that you're doing now.
I will start first of all with a little story.
Yes.
And I will connect that with what I do. And this story is actually what may explain why I'm very excited about what I do today and my work and the program. So 2012, a few months after being in Australia, by that time I am doing some face-to-face fundraising work for Australia, for UNHCR, I think, or was a different charity. I can't remember exactly. And I'm sure if you've been in shopping malls, you will see face-to-face fundraisers trying to stop different people. And it was the hardest job you can do. For me, what motivated me to do that job every day was the fact that I knew I was raising funds for refugees. And I've always believed that when I was in the refugee camp, someone else was doing that. So it's like an opportunity for me to kind of give back. And obviously, I learned all my Aussie words and improved my English in that job. So I think I really appreciate that opportunity.
Wow.
But I traveled in different locations and doing that. And just this one day, I happened to be working in the Gold Coast. I think it was Ballyhead's shopping mall. And I spoke to this lady. We had a conversation with her. She didn't donate. And late in the evening, I stopped this gentleman and We spoke about the fundraising, and he was very touched with the cause of refugees and decided to become a donor. And he left. He came back on the same afternoon and said, look, here's my card. Can you contact me?" And we were given a lot of cards. It was something that you can't do all the time, contacting everybody that gives you the card. So for some reason, I was inclined to contacting this person. And that was because we connected quite strongly as we were speaking. And anyway, fast forwarding the story, we ended up meeting on a different occasion. And this person became Australian father. We have been connected ever since.
Wow.
When I was moving into my first house, he made a phone call to his friends. They donated furnitures. Our first TV, our first couch, our first bed was donated. And I still remember this day where we rented a truck. We drove in different houses, picking up pieces of furniture around the Gold Coast. And we drove to Logan. We furnished my first house. The program that I'm working with is called the CRISP, and that stands for Community Refugee Integration and Settlement Pilot. It is a program that is absolutely, as you said earlier, inspired by the success of the Canadian Community Sponsorship for Refugees, which is a program that enables groups of everyday people, folks like you and your friends, colleagues at work, neighbors, to come together, form their group, formal, informal. But the aim of the group is really providing welcoming to a refugee family or a refugee newcomer into their local community. The way the program works is you have to make a group of at least 5 individuals. You need to be over 18, so adult, 5 or more. We've got groups at the moment who are over 5 people, 10, 15, and groups can be from any location, any postcode in Australia. Wow. Even if the place has never resettled the refugee before, this program can provide that opportunity. And so they tell us that they want to be part of the program, and so we work with them. And in the end, after they do their training, obviously we do screening, making sure that people that are coming in the program have a good intention, they're good character, people of good character. And so we provide training. This training is to really equip you with skills and knowledge. So you don't need any prerequisite skills or experience in doing this. It's just your heart saying, I want to provide an opportunity for refugees. And if I can just go back a little bit, I've always think it's good to share this a little bit. At the moment, there is an estimate of over 100 million people that are forcibly displaced. We're watching what is happening in Ukraine. We're seeing what is happening in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, in Congo, where I come from. There is an estimate of over 20 million people that are currently refugees, with a tiny number being given an opportunity to resettle in third countries. I think with my experience coming in the country, the hard times that I've had and everything, the call that we're making now is for people that say, look, I don't want someone else in Blaise's situation to come in this country and just struggling to know how to, to speak Aussie slang. I can be the friends that just talk to him once a week, and that's what it is. So the program, if I can just go back again, I'm sorry I keep going back and forth here.
No, it's fantastic.
What the program entails is that you form a group, and your group will provide that initial 12 months of settlement support for a refugee, and that's that from pickup from the airport. So your group will do a settlement plan. As part of your settlement plan, you will provide a short-term accommodation for your family, and on the date of arrival, you'll be at the airport to welcome this person or family that is coming, and you provide them with ongoing mentoring and support for 12 months.
One of the things you highlighted, and I think is one of the big, obviously you made it, you got there, you're a way maker, as I like to say, you found a way, you made a way to get there. What would have made that so much easier for you on your journey is if you'd had a few friends that from the very beginning that had your back, that said, you know what, we're there for you no matter what. Not friends that were going to do things for you, because again, look where you've come from to get here. You obviously have an incredible amount of resiliency, resources, dignity, character, skills, uh, but that ability to say, you know what, we're going to be the scaffolding around you. We're going to be the support around you to make sure you are going to make it through those deep, dark early days where you're facing the discouragement and the depression, when the honeymoon period of life in Australia kind of ends, to know that you've got that social support. One of the things why the charity I started is called You Belong is because really at the heart and core of really what enables us to grow and to develop and to thrive is that sense of we belong.
Yes.
We belong here. We have friendships. We are relationally connected. And I just love that. It opens the door. The program opens the door for anybody, anywhere, to be able to do the greatest good for some of the most incredibly wonderful people out there who have fallen on difficult times. What kind of, for people out there, what kind of what will it take though? What's it going to cost them, apart from obviously the training that you provide for them and the support that you provide for them? Is there any kind of financial commitment to make sure that they're able to help them through on their journey? I mean, I'm assuming, they're going to be obviously, if they don't have a driver's license right away, they're going to need to be able to help with transport. They're going to need, there's lots of different ways in which people that are part of that group will support them. Can you kind of highlight, I'm sure people listening, oh, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity. I'm going to call my friends right away. What would you tell them? Hey, what's it going to cost? What's the expectation on those that commit to this for 12 months? It's not just hey, I'm going to help for a few months here. No, it's a commitment for 12 months.
Yes, and if I can just start first of all by making a comment on the commitment that is not financial. We're asking people to commit for a 12 months period as a group of 5 or more adults. And as part of that commitment, we've estimated this to be about 12 hours a week for the group. About 10 hours, I think. Yeah, it's about a minimum of 10 hours a week, which comes down to 2 hours each
per person. Yeah.
And obviously, this is one of the most different way of volunteering, because for many volunteering opportunities, you've got a set of time that you have to go in and do your bit and come back home. What this is really working with a person and looking after, not looking after them, mentoring them and providing them with guidance and support.
Having them over for dinner,
Yes, and those sort of things. And, there is no certain set of time of saying that you have to do this at this time. So there is huge flexibility there in that sense. When it comes to finances, unlike Canada and other places where this program has been running for a while, refugees that are coming as part of this program actually have access to all social welfare sort of support, like any other humanitarian entrant. So the welfare support is not support is not on the group.
Yep.
So that is looked after by the government as usual, as by any other humanitarian entrant. The right number of things, though, is that we're asking the group to fundraise to be able to cover those costs, and I will detail them very quickly here and explain which one is which. Obviously, for humanitarian entrant, when they arrive in Australia, the welfare support does not start on day one. So it may take up to a couple of weeks before the welfare support starts. And so they need a place to stay. And that's what we're calling a temporary accommodation. When they arrive, they need a place to stay. And what we've seen around Australia, again, we're not telling people how to provide that. So groups are being creative in sourcing short-term accommodation.
Sure.
And, for some, we've had, stories across the country where some groups, someone just said, oh, we've got a friend who's got an Airbnb and is willing to give it to us for a month or 2 months. And so this will be a short-term accommodation, and that really brings the cost down. Because as we all know, funding accommodation for 2 months may be a little bit expensive. So that is one, short-term accommodation. The second is really furnitures. From my own experiences, I furnished my first house, my first unit in Loganley, actually using donated furnitures.
Sure.
And so furnitures, depending to whether if you're getting this in kind, the cost actually comes extremely down. And if you will be buying this, that is another cost that comes there. The second, the third, and fourth are obviously the human beings that will need food when they arrive. And so provision of meals during that initial period of time. And the last one are things like seasonal clothing, a mobile phone for communication when they arrive. Those are the key basic items that really cost money as part of this. Now, the fundraising part and the finances, one thing that I should say, the cost, we've tried to estimate this to be from about $5,000 to a max to about $25,000. Now, this depends on two factors. One is the size of the family.
Sure.
Obviously, if you are supporting a large family, the cost will tend to be higher. The second is based on what is given in kind. So let's say short-term accommodation was given in kind, furnitures were donated, the cost goes significantly down.
Sure.
When people are fundraising, where I would like to clarify as well that the fundraising is not to us. We don't take the money. The group will be responsible to create their own settlement plan, which we work with a group, say, can you work out your settlement plan? And as part of the settlement plan, they will look at the GP that the family or the newcomer will be going to. They will look at the butchers, they will look at everything that anybody that comes in the country may need to know, schools, TAFE, and those sort of things. But also, they will look at the budget. So to do this, how much budget do we need? Where are we going to source temporary accommodation? And so with that, they will work on their own budget. They present that budget to us. They raise their own funds. The funds will be kept by them to do what they've identified as part of their budget and settlement plan.
You know what I love about that? It's like it's just so empowering. It's empowering everyone to be able to, hey, we give you the autonomy to create this yourself. Where, there's guidelines, there's support that we're going to offer, there's expertise that we'll provide. But hey, you go and find your own creative solution.
Absolutely.
Go to a local school and see if you can get them a scholarship to maybe a good school for their kids, or maybe figure out how you can, find out, is there a GP or, obviously, there's Medicare. There's all these kinds of resources that are so privileged here in Australia to have free access to. But at the same time, there's so many other people in the community that if they knew that group of 5 or 10 were taking on this responsibility, they would want to contribute as well. They'd want to be. And so it kind of just branches out this support, and it really provides that whole community empowering support.
And we're hearing those stories every day, team, like groups that just put in a Facebook ad in their community and they were just poured with support. Tradesmen were offering to renovate the short-term accommodation they've identified. People were donating money. People were donating their own time, saying, I will come and help out with, moving furnitures. There are a lot of generous people out there. I think a lot of people are looking for what they can do. And so this is an opportunity that we have. And I always say that instead of people watching TV, and I know a lot of people, my friends, that don't watch TV anymore. And that's because there is nothing that is motivating. It's all very depressing. There are heartbreaking news and stuff. And what I tell people, instead of sitting back, switching off your TV and watching other things, this is an opportunity now where you can do something, instead of feeling helpless and hopeless. This is time where you can just say, I want to make a difference. And the difference is actually big, that someone who would have struggled in their first 12 months in this country, you can make. I still talk about my story of being supported and starting my life in this country because someone was there for me. And that's why I'm quite passionate about doing what I'm doing, Tim. It's because I know what it feels like when someone told me, oh, you don't have a laptop. Yeah, I've got an old laptop that can keep you going until when you get money to buy a new one. And that was the first laptop that I used to apply for my first job. I still remember, when he called me, would call me and say, "Oh, you are moving into your new house. So how was the furniture and everything?" And I said, "I have nothing, and I couldn't afford to furnish my house." And he said, "Mate, I've got friends. Don't worry. I make some phone calls around, and I let you know." The next day, I'm told, "What are you doing on the weekend? Do you want to come down up to the coast?" I went there, and this was picking up furniture in different houses.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, I know what it feels like.
Dude, you're making me want to start my own group right away.
Let's do
it. So if there's someone out there that's like, "Hey, what's next? Do we reach out to you? Do we send an email? Are there families waiting? Is there a waiting list?" Let's try and kind of give some opportunities for you now to kind of give some next steps.
Yeah, look, the program we're still in the pilot phase, and the pilot phase, we are located about 1,500 places for people that will resettle through this pilot program. And the first year we were given about 100, and I must say now we have matched those 100 individuals with groups around Australia.
Brilliant.
And what is really good is that groups are everywhere. It's not just like, in Queensland, when you say Logan, there's one thing that comes in your mind that it's a resettlement area because
so many
resettlement. Yeah, but this one is actually different. That even a community that has never seen someone that looks different before, they can make it happen now.
And that's such a gift for that community. You know what that is saying? It's saying like, hey, what richness is entering into that community? What new resources, a new way of living, new way of looking at life. Such diversity is something I think I'm proud of to be an Australian, is that, hey, it's diversity that's built our country. And so when it's not like a predetermined, this is where these families are going, when it really does open it up for the goodwill of Aussies to be able to say, hey, we'll welcome you into our backyard. I love that. So good.
And I've seen it, Tim, as I travel around talking about this program. I've been into communities where I've been invited by generous people in the community saying, we would like our community to hear about this. Would you come? And I would go there, and just before the information session, I say, let me take a walk around and see how the community looks like. And I would walk for like 30, 40 minutes and find I'm the only one that looks like this.
Yeah.
And go like, how brilliant people want to make their community more diverse, culturally diverse. And, it's already happening, and I encourage other people to think about it out there. So for those that really want to get involved, yes, we are getting referrals. We're getting people coming in the program every time. At the moment, we've got people waiting to be matched, and we're actively working very hard to match them with groups that have already
gone through training
that we're working with. But we're also bracing for the next referrals that we're expecting by early next year in January. In terms of getting involved, our website is called refugeesponsorship.org.au. And when you go there, there is a place where we put a small sort of form which we call intention to apply. Or we're asking people that have already formed the group, and I've had questions in the past of how do I form a group?
Yeah.
Look, I've seen groups formed in different settings. Like I know people that just went on Facebook once they heard about us and said, I've heard of this brilliant program. They put a post on their local Facebook groups and say, I want to do this. Anybody's keen. And groups have come from that. People spoke to their colleagues at work. People spoke to people at their churches, at their mosques. And that's how groups are being formed. So once you've got a group, we ask you to nominate someone to be a group coordinator and someone else to be a deputy coordinator. You fill in that little form that we've got on our website just to tell us that you want to be part of the program. And from that, we'll work with you to develop your settlement plan. We work with you to give you strategies of fundraising. How do you secure housing? How do you find out GPs in your community and everything that you really need to a point where you are confident you can do this? And we're not just bringing newcomers from the airport and dumping them to you. No. We work with you in ensuring that, yes, financially you are ready. You've got that short-term accommodation. Time-wise, you are ready. We've had groups that have completed all the steps, and because of timing, they were not ready, and we get that. And so we just put them on hold. When they are ready, they tell us, and that's when we do the matching.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Come on. So go to the website communitysponsorship.org.au. And you can fill out that form of interest, intention of interest. Can they email you? Who would they email in order to kind of get some questions, or is it just done through the website there?
Easiest email to remember is info@refugeesponsorship.org.au. The same domain as our website, refugeesponsorship.org.au. If you remember my full name, Blaise Itabelo, my email address is blaise.itabelo@refugeesponsorship.org.au. If you forgot my name, just remember info@refugeesponsorship.org.au. Send your email there. Invite us to come and speak to your local group, to your local club.
Yeah.
We've had groups formed even with local clubs. And so we would love to come out there and talk to your community about it.
That's a great way that, there might be 10 groups that would form if they could invite you to kind of speak at a larger audience, yes. Maybe a church group, or maybe there could be a sports club, or maybe there are other kind of community organizations out there, Rotary clubs, wherever they might be. Again, you're reaching out into all aspects of the community that have one single motivation, that's to welcome and empower these incredible waymakers to belong and thrive into their new home that they've got. I have thoroughly loved chatting with you, Blaise. I think we're going to have another interview on the Justice Matters podcast, if you don't mind. And we'll do this in person, and we'll probably get a bit more nitty gritty into your life. But what would you say to people out there? Like what would you encourage people? How do I put this? What's been a life motto for you? What's kind of been something that you've kind of really drawn on throughout your life that you say, hey, this is what I've learned in my life, and this is what I want to encourage the listeners today to hold on to? If there's one thing you could share from the golden chest of Blaise Itabelo.
Look, for anyone that is listening to me, I think all I can say is life is like a chameleon. It presents itself with a new color based on what it's exposed to. So today it can be red, tomorrow it can be green, and those are the challenges and difficulties and hiccups we face every day. And I think what is good and what we always need to think about is there's always tomorrow. And what is important is knowing how to deal with the green that comes to your life, and knowing how to deal with the red. I think I've seen it all in my life. Well, I wouldn't say I've seen it all. I've seen it a bit, where often I had situations where you just did not think you'd make it to the next day. That you will make it to the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So it's really important to know that, the next day will come.
And yet here we are. We've made it through every single one of our worst days ever, and we are got a smile on our face today. Thanks for being there for people in their deepest, darkest times in their lives. Blaise, thanks for living your life to give back, even though you could have taken this second chance at life and kind of, built your own dream and your own ambitions in life, but you're choosing it to serve those around you. It's an honor to have you on this podcast. It's people like you that are making this world a better place where we all belong. I'm proud to now have a new friend in you. I look forward to getting together with you just up the road. We'll either have you come down here with your beautiful family. Quickly, tell me about your family. You're a father.
I'm a father, yes. So 2 boys, 13 and 9. I've got twin girls who are 6.
Wow.
9, and yes, and I live with my sister-in-law's my firstborn. I like calling her my firstborn. She's 15, so I've got a handful of hours, 5 kids.
Wow, look at you, mate. Love it. I've got 4, but I couldn't imagine having one more, let alone twins. Yes. That's got to, hats off to you and your beautiful wife. I'm sure this is doing a fantastic job raising your family. Thanks for being on the Who Is My Neighbour podcast. It's been great getting to know you and learning a lot about your work, and we look forward to hearing more about it in future episodes.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode of Who Is My Neighbour. It is an immense privilege to share these inspiring conversations with you. To learn more about how you can get involved or learn more about today's guest, head on over to the show notes or episode description. This episode was produced by the master himself, Jose Biotto, with a little help from me. The featured music is the song Hopes and Dreams by Evet Z. Lastly, thank you for subscribing to Who Is My Neighbour. Without you and your support, this podcast would not be possible. If you'd like to support this podcast and the ongoing work of You Belong, simply join the neighbourhood, You Belong's community of monthly givers. Together, we are empowering waymakers around the world until we all belong. Who Is My Neighbour acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present and future traditional custodians and elders of this nation, now known as Australia, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.